Hello and welcome. My name is Kieran Beer. I am the Chief Analyst and the Director of Editorial Content for ACAMS. My guest today is Maeker, who is the head of AML in the Estonian Financial Supervisory Authority. Matis, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting.
Obviously, you're aware, Estonia has been in the news. Not Estonia alone, a number of banks out of the Nordics, and some criticism. But I know, you've been here, we've done a panel, you've talked a lot about what Estonia is doing to address some of these issues, and I wonder if you could sort of recap some of what Estonia has done.
Yes, there has been a fair amount of criticism in the media towards Estonia, and especially the supervisory authority. We ourselves think that we were effective and we have been proactive. That's a very important part, being proactive, not reactive. And the case the public is talking about is the Danske Bank case. So Danske Bank is a Danish bank that had an office in Estonia. And we forced Danske Bank to exit that high-risk non-resident business already in 2015. So for us, this is a case of 4 years or even more old. And already
Estonia, you really feel as though you actually were on the cutting edge of finding this
and closing down. And it happened due to we going to an on-site. Actually, we had 2 on-site inspections in 2014. And where we identified those breaches. So we had to force them to close that. The second case, landmark case for Europe, is the case of VersaBank, where the European Central Bank withdrew the authorization of VersaBank due to our proposal. And why I'm calling it a landmark case, because it was the first case in Europe where the authorization was withdrawn due to AML-CFT reasons. So there were no other reasons except AML-CFT. We have closed down payment service providers, so we have been really proactive and effective, and we can show the results, and the results are overwhelming. The example is that at the end of 2014, the non-resident share of deposits in the banking sector was around 90%. Right. Now today it's down to 8%. So if we are talking about the high-risk part of that, so the offshore part of that 90% was 8.5%. Now it's 0.5%. So we have been really doing hard work to close down that business.
And the 90% non-resident, that seems, I guess,
19.
It was 19 at 19. The height of the problem, and now it's down to 8%. Good. Yes, good. Okay. I was going to say 90. That's it. Wait a minute.
Yes, 19.
I misunderstood you. So, and that involved a legislative change or a regulatory change to cap that, or just greater scrutiny of those accounts?
I think what happened in 2014, and I'm happy for that, is that we got a new management board members in the FSA, and they were really tough, and they decided from the first day that money laundering, terrorist financing is something that we will combat, and truly combat. We risk mapped the sector. We gave our market participants a clear signal that Estonia is not the place for opaque business. We are going to be tough here, and beware. And the first case for us was Danske Bank. The second was VersaBank. And we haven't been, these are not the only 2 cases. We have been working behind the curtains, so to say. There are many cases that the public doesn't know, but where we have already solved the cases.
And so I think too, also when we think about the whole situation and what happened, there's a responsibility for Europe too, and that there's this greater need for information sharing and transparency. And can you talk a little bit, I don't know how much of that's going to be addressed by the 5th Anti-Money Laundering Directive, and how much of that is things that you're still working on, but maybe talk a little bit about Europe's responsibility and where Estonia fits into that.
I think there are 2 points. The first one is that there is, at least we see that there is an overwhelming expectation towards the supervisory authorities. But combating money laundering, terrorist financing is not for the private sector and the supervisory authority. We should have a broader look. We have the FIUs, we have the law enforcement. So we should be taking a look at the whole picture, not just take supervisory authorities in isolation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the supervisory authorities are really dependent on the intelligence information. So the supervisory authorities look at the systems and controls, whether they are working. but you cannot make a decision whether they are working or not without the intelligence that the FIUs and the law enforcement hold. So the question is not only the sharing of information internally inside the country, but outside as well, because money laundering respects no borders. If we're talking about the Danske Bank case, the majority of funds did not come from Russia to Danske Bank. They were so-called already in the system. They were in the European Union, they went to European Union. So we shouldn't be looking at the Danske Bank case in isolation. We should be analyzing it in the whole European Union. So when we should be fighting against money laundering, terrorist financing together, not country by country. So there is room, of course, for information exchange. I'm not talking only about between supervisory authorities or between the FIUs or the law enforcement authorities, but also diagonal information. Let's say the FIU of Germany exchange information with the FSA of Estonia. Why not? Why should be exchanging information between FIUs and then exchanging information with the supervisory authorities? So there is a lot. Yeah, there is a room of improvement, but we all want to live in the ideal world, and we are hopefully going there, and hopefully there is no organized crime anymore. That's the ideal world.
Yes, we're all waiting for that day. And looking forward to it. I was going to ask you one question about, so the residency thing is under control. If I'm an e-citizen of Estonia, am I considered a resident? So that might be still.
Now for banks, you are non-residents. So
that's really reassuring. Yeah.
Just the e-residency card is just a card for you. So it would be easier for you to do transactions, but you are nevertheless non-resident. And the banks still ask the non-residents, why do you come here? Why do you do business in Estonia? What's your connection with Estonia? And these are actually vital questions. These are questions that they should be asking. Why are those banks chosen for banking?
Now, so many jurisdictions have decided that there is so much money to be made in hosting cryptocurrency companies and being a cryptocurrency exchange. Estonia started to talk about that, but what's happened? It's not happened, or?
So yes, as far as I know, Estonia was one of the first countries to provide licenses to the virtual currency providers. Actually, before the AMLD4, we had the regulation already in our system where we regulated similar service providers. And when the new AML law came into force, we had a lot of companies that wanted to receive a license or to be regulated by an Estonian authority. So our FIU is providing the licenses and is supervising them. The FSA of Estonia has always said that there is a risk with cryptocurrencies. We are talking about money laundering, terrorist financing risk, but also risk of being defrauded. So these systems are being used to defraud people of money. And now there is a legislative intent to change the law and to have tougher regime in place, so not to let those companies establish licenses in Estonia. So what the issue for Estonia is that they are being licensed, but they don't use Estonia as a place to do business, so they go outside, and that's a risk. And because Estonia is taking the risk, and we see that this is an issue, and we need to really get our grip and to do something that we are not taking the risk if something
to end at the at most, and to control certainly.
And to control them, yes, to really take those providers on board that we know the risk and we can manage that risk, and to know what they are really doing.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I want to thank you, Matis Maeker, who is with the Financial Supervisory Authority of Estonia and head of the AML effort there. Thanks again, Matis.
Thank you for inviting. Thank you.